Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, in a slightly unusual setting. We are in the country estate of comedian, producer, director and general celebrity Stuart Taylor. Stuart's not here though, and as we're talking about wine, that's a very good thing. Instead, one of my very favourite people in the food and wine industry, my old friend Peter Goffe-Wood.
Dan, how's it going, man?
I'm extremely well. I'm in your company and we have a bottle of wine.
What more can we ask for?
We've known each other for a very, very long time. We've had many, many meals together, and people won't be surprised by that. You're one of South Africa's finest chefs. We know you from television shows across the country. What people might not know so much about you, though, is that you are as passionate about wine as you are about food.
Yeah, look, I think it's become a pet peeve. I think the two go hand in hand.
And those are two things we try really hard to push on Dan Really Likes Wine. One, that our wine is as good, if not better, than most wine from the rest of the world, and two, that South Africans need to drink more of it. On that first point, I'm very subjective because I just love South African wine. Yeah. I travel a lot, as do you. I've drunk wine around the world. I still think our wine is exceptional, especially at the value. Is that just me being particularly patriotic, or is that really the case?
No, I think it's really the case. I think the South African producers have a tendency to undersell themselves internationally because they're trying to get into the market. So I think, especially when you look at our exchange rate, it works in favour of exporters. So that you're looking at, if you're looking at a price point, chances are the South African wine is going to be far better value at the same price point than French, American, or even Australian stuff is, because our rand is so weak. So you're kind of up buying, if you will. You know, that our wine should be much higher priced than they actually are internationally. Because they are, I mean, they're showstoppers. You only have to look at the amount of international awards and the international food writers who come over here, food and wine writers who come over here and are completely blown away and love our wines. If you look at the Jancis Robinsons and of this world, the Spectator and all these, they come over, they've always got South African wines in their top 10 international roundup of varietals, of wines in general. You know, our white blends are highly thought of. Our Chenin is stellar, it's world class. You know, our Pinot is creeping up there, that even the French are starting to get anxious. So I think we make some glorious wines, and we should drink them, we should be proud.
The flip side to that pricing argument can be locally, when people who are maybe normally drinking a 40, 50, 60 rand bottle of wine, which is the usual in South Africa. People don't have a huge amount of money, and now seeing a 200, 300, 400 rand bottle, in some cases some even over 1,000 rand. How do we then justify those sort of prices here?
Well, I think the same thing goes with food. I think we've been spoiled. The South Africans have been spoiled for a long time, and that we've been getting top-notch food in our restaurants and wines in our glass at a fraction of what they're worth and what the rest of the world would pay for a similar quality. So I think those times are changing. Restaurant prices are starting to go up, and you're starting to see wine prices that are. It's not unusual to go and see a bottle of wine on a shelf in a decent bottle store that's 700 to 800 rand anymore. You know, I think those times are coming. We're going to start having to pay what the stuff is really worth.
Which is great for the wine producers, a little more challenging for those of us on a budget, but the rewards are certainly there, and we're going to find that out in a moment with a bottle I'm really looking forward to. Before we get into that though, as a chef, two questions for you. What is the thing that irritates you most about the wine world, conceptions of wine, people drinking wine from a food perspective? And then secondly, when people are cooking, what are you thinking about? What's your point of departure when you want to do that food-wine pairing?
Okay, so first of all, I think like all wine speak, there's kind of this elitist kind of vibe that surrounds wine, that that you don't want to speak your mind and say what you like and what you don't like unless you feel stupid. And I think that happens particularly with food and wine pairing. We're going, it must be red wine and it must be red meat, and if you're going to have fish, it must be Sauvignon Blanc. And I say to people, first of all, it's not nonsense. Drink what you want to drink. If you want to drink Chenin throughout a 7-course meal of different courses of different textures, then do so. If you want to go to a steakhouse and drink Sauvignon Blanc while you eat a 500-gram T-bone, that's also nothing wrong with that. You know, when you get to the specifics of pairing food and wine, that's a different thing entirely, because you're trying to bring elements in the food and the wine out in each other to make the experience better. And I think that you have to look at 2 separate items. You know, for example, there are some red wines that don't like acidity. So dishes that with fresh tomato or stewy tomato dishes have a high acidity that tend to make the red wines taste quite tannic. So you've got to be careful that you don't want to spoil your wine with the food. But I think people must stop being precious about what to eat with what. And also I think people make the mistake of when they're pairing wines, they're pairing with the wrong element. So everyone says, oh, it's lamb. You must have Cabernet Sauvignon. I say, okay, well, lamb with what? It's actually the lamb. Is it lamb? Is it a spiced Moroccan lamb with barbe ganoush, flatbreads, and some marinated vegetables? Or is it traditional lamb with roast potatoes and gravy? And so it's more about the pairing than the actual protein itself. Because if you take that lamb experience, you want something Shirazi, something that stand up to that Moroccan style of food, that the lots of fatty, spicy foods, not necessarily the lamb.
So that classic back of a label goes beautifully with game.
Oh, my best is when it says with seafood, pasta, and salads. I want to kill them. I want to take you out and rip your throat out.
Goes well with food is pretty much
exactly.
what you're saying.
Goes well with food.
All right, well, we've got a bottle of wine here that I think will go well with just about everything, because it's a grape that you and I both have a fondness for, and it would seem more and more South Africans are not just having a fondness for, but also an appreciation for it as a quality wine, because where once upon a time you might have looked upon Chenin as that kind of 4-day headache entry level, finding in a box white wine, the top of the level stuff, your FMCs and your Beaumonts, is quite magnificent.
Look, I think Chenin, it's the most widely planted grape in South Africa, and that's largely because most of that goes to brandy. And so it's always had this kind of sort of white trash kind of feel about it as a varietal that was never very sexy. But I think times have changed because the winemakers realize they've got this fantastic grape. It grows very, very differently in different parts of the country, but it is an incredibly versatile a varietal to work with. And now people are starting to apply some genius and some time and some wood to some beautiful Chenin. And we're starting to see some world-class Chenins. I think this is the wine that will eventually represent South Africa. Forget Pinotage and the other things. That Chenin is what South Africa will stand out for. In the same way that New Zealand is synonymous with Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin in South Africa, we will put Chenin back on the map.
Well, it's interesting you say that. There was a wine magazine survey, I think it was last week or the week before. People were asked, what do you feel is South Africa's national grape? You'd think people would have said Pinotage because we started it, but Chenin came up just as highly.
Yeah. I mean, look, it is. I mean, if you look at this, and this great, interesting stuff, the Chenins that are being bottled and grown in the Swartland are magnificent. They're full-bodied, they're rich, they're expensive, but they're well-made and they're magnificent. And then you've got very, very different ones being grown in the Breede Kloof, where
I had some of the Mervida a couple of weeks ago. Sensational.
3 times the rainfall of Swartland, and much longer summers, so very much more floral, much more elegant Chenin, very total different style of Chenin, but equally power-packed. And for me, obviously as a chef, fantastic food accompaniment. The best thing is the easiest wine to put with food, because you can go as robust as you like with the spicing. You can still be quite delicate. The palate that you can work with food is enormous. You know, if you take something like Sauvignon Blanc, you're working with acidity, and you've always got to make sure the food's more acid than the wine, otherwise you destroy the wine. You're really difficult to bury Chenin in good food.
Right, well, I think you've talked it up enough, so let's get open. As you watch this is internationally acclaimed wine bottle opening technique from Peter Goffe-Wood. I have seen him open a bottle of wine with a steak knife before, but it was quite late at night and we couldn't find a corkscrew.
We were really thirsty.
We were indeed. The first 7 or 8 bottles just hadn't hit the spot. So tell us what this is and why you've picked it.
So this is a fantastic young winemaker, Lucas van Longeren, and he has, well, he's known for picking up small patches of odd bits of ground and turning them into great wines. And he's worked for all over the place, and now he's on his own. This is from a pocket of Chenin in Paarl that's 1960, planted since 1960. So real old vines. It's bush vines, it's dry land, so it gets very, very little. The only water it gets naturally, no irrigation or anything like that. And it's quite special. It makes very small amounts of it. There's only a production of about 5 barrels in total, so not a great deal. And it has a great character. I mean, what drew me first of all was the label. The label is really, really funky, and I wish Lucas was here because obviously there's a lot of meaning that goes into this label, but it's quite a funky, unusual sort of label. But the wine itself there's character to it. You can tell this is from old stock. You can tell there's a history to this wine that wasn't planted by some German advertising agent 2 years ago because they retired to Cape Town. There's some story behind these grapes.
And why is it that Chenin has this old vine relationship? You see lots of old vine Chenins, but you don't see old vine attached to as many other grapes.
I think it's because it's a brandy wine, and primarily that's what the wines that were grown in the Cape originally were for brandy, because regular wines don't travel. Either like the Van de Constance, that either have a high sugar content or they were turned into brandy so that they could travel. So that's why all of the old gear that still surrounds from original plantings, a lot of it is Chenin for exactly that reason.
So many years ago, this particular grape might have ended up being paired with some Coca-Cola. Instead, it's being paired with Peter Goffe-Wood, which I think is far superior.
Cheers, Dan.
Oh, I love that nose.
Yeah.
Mm.
You see, there's a richness to that, but this is not in your face like some of the big, bold Swartlands. There's an elegance to this that comes with age.
That is beautiful. I have a lot of friends will come around and I'll give them a Chenin and they'll immediately think it's a Chardonnay because of that lovely big creamy nose. But then there is something just slightly more restrained about the wine when you get into it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, as I said, this with food, there's a whole long list of things that you could put with this. It would just be everything from anything smoky, smoked trout, smoked salmon, anything smoked tuna, even smoked chicken breast, anything cold, cold smoke would be nice. Some Thai food, like I said, something with a bit of chili and a bit of ginger and a bit of lime would work well with this. So the kind of the palate that you could pair this with is limitless, really.
I'm going to have another sip of that because I really enjoy it. And what I also love about this, without knocking Sauvignon Blanc, I sometimes get accused of knocking Sauvignon Blanc. I really enjoy Sauvignon Blanc. I think we just tend to drink too much of it and far too young.
I completely agree.
Is that this is a wine that's just got that much more to it. It's more quintessentially South African for me, and it's also a wine that, not unlike Sauvignon Blanc, but more so, give it some time, and this is already terrific, but another 2 or 3 years it's going to keep turning into something brilliant.
I mean, this is a 2017, and this will last. This in 5 to 8 years from now is going to be absolutely glorious. Someone told me that you buy 2 cases, one that you drink now and one you keep, but I never seem to have that discipline. Yeah. You have a fine cellar, so you've amassed enough wine. You can't drink it all. You have to. You're allowed to, or you're able to stay. I think the lifespan of the average bottle of wine in my house is about 2 weeks.
Well, my great problem is that no matter how many times I change the lock, my wife still gets into the cellar. So every time I go away, there's been an obliteration of a lot of my wine.
Tunnel that grate that you think is drainage, not. It's a tunnel.
Oh dear. Well, there is increasingly. I think even maybe 10 years ago, my cellar would probably have been predominantly red with a splash of Sauvignon. Yeah. My love of South African white wine has really grown, and you've been part of it. You've introduced me some great wines over the years. And I've now got some fantastic Chenin, which I think most people are starting a cellar should really consider.
Look, I also think, I think now that we see the quality of the white wines that are made in this country, they do last. You know, restaurateurs will tell you South Africans are very dubious about older white wines. The French love them. I was working in Zambia recently on a lodge, and we got a whole load of Bushot Finlayson Chardonnay that was 9 years old, and these French they couldn't stop drinking. They couldn't stop drinking it. They were so bowled away by we had 2 Sauvignon Blancs that were 2018. No, they wanted the 8-year-old Chardonnay because they understood the quality of it, and it was truly magnificent. And I think that's what we've come to realize is South Africa's winemakers make every bit as good white wine as they do red, and it'll keep just as long, maybe not just as long, but I've had some good 10-year-old white wines that are produced locally that are in truly magnificent company.
So there you go, some basic lessons from someone who knows food and wine better than most. Try more Chenin Blanc, keep it a little longer, make sure that you drink what you feel like drinking, not necessarily what it says on the back of the label when you're having some food. Play around, experiment, and I think above all, just enjoy the fact that South Africa makes some of the best wine in the world.
Although, and I must admit, and there's a word of warning, which is the first time I've seen a bottle, it says Don't drink and walk in the road, you may be killed.
Well, there we go. Rather sit back, open a glass and drink some fantastic South African wine. In this case, a lovely Chenin, but whatever it is, proudly South African and generally absolutely fantastic. Peter Goffe-Wood, cheers.
Dan, good to see you.